Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
You know, you want to surround yourself with people that are better than you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? That are lifting you up. I don't want to be the guy that's the millstone, you know, that's taking the group down. But at the same time, I want to be surrounded by people that I know either are on a different plane or headed to a different plane. And I can kind of draft them to the finish line. You know what I mean?
Check this out on in terms of like dragging people down, right?
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you generally?
I mean,
I'm gonna go an 8.
Yeah, I was
right?
just gonna say an 8. I'm
gonna go an 8.
8.
Let's go with Kelly Freeman. Kelly Freeman's an 8 too, right?
Yeah.
Well, an 8 times an 8, let's make it a 0.8, right? 8 out of 10. 80% of the time, I'm happy. 80% of the time, Kelly's happy. Take that 0.8 times 0.8. That means between the two of us, 64% of the time, we're both happy. Right? So like as our kids are looking at who they're going to maybe hitch their wagon to forever, that might be something to have a conversation with. I'm a generally happy guy. Kelly's a generally happy woman. That still means 36% of the time it's a crapshoot.
Yep.
Right? And the last thing you want to be doing is dragging around somebody that 2 out of 10 is happy.
Right.
Right? Because then what is that going to mean?
I am all in on that principle, but at the same time, I have this lingering thought that like honestly, like I see people and I'm like, jump in my boat. Like you just jump in my boat. I'll paddle us there. You know what I mean? Like that's always my thought process. Like I see someone who's not maybe in the best spot. I'm like, get on. Just hang on. I'll pedal, you know?
Yeah, and we could do that, but I think that the real work is like, hey, I can fill your bucket, but can we talk about that big hole inside of it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I can do this for a while, but in the end, like we got to restore some things, right? And we all know, the three of us know that restoration is not coming from something Mike Freeman can do. Right? I can point somebody, I can minister and I can influence and I can encourage, but we know that the gospel of Jesus Christ is what restores. That's what fills our holes, right? That's what heals us.
There is this idea of like, yeah, I think there has to be like a consistent goal that you're all kind of looking towards, right? And even if someone may be on different levels, right? You're all on different levels. I was talking to a friend of mine tonight, and I told him, you know, he was talking about us as teenagers, and he was like, gosh, you know, this and that. And I said, yeah, but at the end of the day, I am where I am today because I had these two guys that were with me that even though we were kind of knuckleheads, there was this kind of this familiar vision of, hey, we want to be better. Even though we may not have said that, we were kind of looking towards that, right. You know? And in times when I was like the leader of the knuckleheads, I could look over and see these guys looking at me like, we're moving this direction. And that definitely changed my trajectory, you know?
But do you remember, I remember, so I have a life outside of the church, right? I have a life outside of the gospel that's just kind of there to remind me, right?
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me a little bit. And man, there's nothing more frustrating than wanting to be better, but not having that answer.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Like
Like, how can I get out of my own way? Well,
yeah.
you got to change your way. Well, how do I do that? Right. You know, I'm a sucker for the personal development section of the of Barnes and Noble, right? But like you and I both know, Scripture is the best personal development book,
For sure,
right?
yeah.
Like trying to do that work. Like in my mind, and Mitch, I shot you that text of like, you know, some things that are bouncing around in my head. And I'm sorry, man, we dump on you because
No, I
hey,
got it.
we
I
had so
read it
much
all.
fun with you the first episode. It's like, get Mitch back in here
Yeah.
because, well,
Yeah.
I
let's be
appreciate it.
real. We
You
asked
got our
you for a
text stream
picture.
of consciousness going on.
Yeah, we
you know?
asked you for a picture for the show art, and you're sending us a picture of you and your band, and you're sending us a picture of you breathing fire, and it's like,
Yeah, I was like,
okay,
no.
I'm sorry, that's an invitation to come back. Like that's just done,
Yeah.
right? But I sent you that Matthew 5:6. So here's the backdrop. Super Bowl Sunday, right? We're already Super Bowl 56, right? I remember Super Bowl 48 when my Seattle Seahawks made it to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Not 49, brother. Don't go there.
49. Oh.
48 makes it to the mountaintop, and they're holding the Lombardi Trophy, right? And I'm having a moment, and I heard a phrase mentioned that night that I'd never heard before, and I love it. I'm sure you've heard of it, Mitch. It's got to be right up your alley. And Gopher Festival, right? Go.
Dude, there's got to be science dropped at the Gopher Festival.
Here's the
Oh, dude. Oh, yeah.
here's the saying: pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. Right? And their point was, now that we've got this, how do we stay hungry?
Yep.
Because pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. And so now, as I'm thinking about it and applying it to spiritual, right? Matthew 5:6, blessed are those that hunger and thirst after righteousness, right? They'll be filled with the Holy Ghost. Let me tell you a story. I go visit this kid. He's serving a mission. He's on the MTC. He's doing the home MTC thing. I walk in. I'm going to slip him a Slurpee, right? I walk in to slip him a Slurpee. I turn the hall to where he's set up, to where his study is set up. And there's a kid in the hallway listening through the door. Now, this kid has a mission call. He's not in the MTC yet. He's in the hallway listening to his friend through the door because he wants to know what it's like.
I think that's cheating, to be honest with you. Like now
That is
he's going to go
hunger.
on the MTC. He's ahead of everybody else.
That is hungry. That is hunger and thirst after righteousness,
That is-
right?
Yeah.
When I first joined the church, I used to work at Long's Drugs. Long's Drugs, right, on Hilltop. It's about maybe a mile away from my church building, right? Well, on Sunday, smock and all, man, I didn't have a car worth a darn. I would jog from Long's Drugs to the church to partake of the sacrament.
Have mercy.
Hunger and thirst after righteousness, right? So now here I am, 46 years old. I've had some amazing experiences in the gospel. I've had some amazing spiritual experiences. I've met amazing people. I've learned amazing things. How do I stay hungry? Because spiritually, the adage is true. Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered, right? So my question to anyone and everyone that I respect right now is, how do you all stay spiritually hungry? And actually, I think even thirst is more important than hunger because, right, we can all be hungry. You can't live without water, right? So
Yep.
as I throw that out there, what comes to mind? Like what is your advice for spiritually staying hungry?
Well, here's the thing with Revelation. There's rules behind it, and this links to Revelation in my personal opinion. For you to receive revelation, God just doesn't throw something out there because you want it. If Joseph Smith went out to the woods and said a prayer, well, if I need to join another church, just let me know when it's convenient, and he got up and walked away, nothing would have happened. There has to be a fervent prayer that's offered. It has to be driven by need, by a desire to serve and to love other people. And you have to be petitioning with humility to say, what do I need to know? in this critical moment to help this person that I love. The revelation will come. It'll come to your heart and your mind, and you will digest that. You cannot receive revelation and not be changed, because here's the final rule. You don't just have to ask, and there has to be a need filled with love. You have to make a decision. You have to act. God didn't go through all that effort to give it to you so that you can just be smarter and walk away with it and maybe use that as information filed away for later. No, anytime direct revelation is received and action is required, it may be simple as you making a decision, but some physical action will be required. And what happens is, I found in my life that the more serious and critical that need, and we've experienced it just this week, the bishop and I, it's amazing how God can get two people in sync. He's getting the exact same information I'm getting, and we're not sharing information over and over and over and over 20, 30 times that week to help certain families, to help ourselves. And we were driven by the need that we cannot let these circumstances stay the same. These people need our direction. They need our help. We were thirsty. We went and we pled with the Lord on their behalf and on our own, that we would measure up, that we would be the people we needed to be able to help them in their time of need. And the information came. But that wasn't the end of it. The difference between the pigs and the hogs is the hogs did nothing. They just digested it and became fat and full of themselves. The pigs continued to work, to labor. They ran out there, used that information in a way that was unique to them. They applied their own creativity, talents, and what have you to implement what they received. You can't just listen and feel and receive. You have to do something with it. And if you hunger and thirst after it enough, the fervent prayer is there. The drive is there, and the Spirit shows up and says, yeah, this is what you should do. And there's no way that you could do it any other way. And when you've done that, you do it all over again. You get to the next step. God leaves you breadcrumbs, and you follow that trail until you're out of the water, you know. And for me, hungering and thirsting after righteousness means I have to have self-preparation. I have to be on my game. I have to be reading my own scriptures, having my own prayer. I have to keep my own selfish desires and distractions at bay, because God can't use me if I've got that going on. So I have to be hungry and thirsty for the Lord's revelation to come and for His direction, and then I have to do it. It's a long answer, but that's mine.
I love it. Love it. Tyler, thoughts on staying hungry?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I think there's a level, you've got to be self-motivated on some level, right? I mean, when I think of this in my mind's eye, when I think of that verse or any verse that talks about, you know, feasting and hungering and thirsting, you know, I always picture a table, right, with this feast laid out in front, and there's a lot of seats, and a lot of people can be sitting there, but not everybody's feasting. You know what I mean? So I think that there's got to be some self-motivation there and a desire to be introspective, where you're looking at yourself going, man, I'm not who I should be today, right? Tomorrow I need to be better. If we're having that thought, I think that there's some motivation. But I think too that I do believe that you got to surround yourself with the right people.
You do.
You know, you got to have those people in your life that you're not afraid to say, hey, you know what? You should probably step your game up. And you're not afraid to hear them say to you, hey, you know what? You're not what you should be today, you know? And I think that's an important thing. I mean, I think that the three of us are lucky in that we're married to some people that aren't afraid to tell us those things, right? That we need to get our act together. But I think that the more people that you surround yourself with that are of that same mindset, the easier it is to want to feast, right? And pull other people into that.
Yeah.
All right, so it's show and tell. Tyler, talk to me about Sir Andrew Barton. What's this quote stirring up in you?
So I actually watched this documentary about the Buffalo Bills of 89 through 94. 94, I think. Maybe 93, I don't know. But they went to 4 Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
And they lost all of them. And there was this, you know, at one
4
point...
consecutive.
4 consecutive Super Bowls. No other team has ever done that in the history of the NFL, right? And at one point, even though they had been in the championship game for 4 years in a row, they were sort of the laughing stock of the NFL, you know? And the respect for them was nothing, and the ridicule was through the roof. But if you look at them now in 2022, the respect is through the roof and the ridicule is nothing, right? So it's totally flip-flopped. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting because Marv Levy, the coach of the Buffalo Bills, who was a former, in the documentary they talked about how he, served in the military, and I think he's the only coach to have a Harvard degree. When he left to go to the military, his mom gave him a book of poetry. And this was in that book, and he would quote this to the Buffalo Bills all the time. Fight on, my men, says Sir Andrew Barton. I am hurt, but I am not slain. I'll lay me down and bleed a while, and then I'll rise and fight again. And I thought that, I really liked that, that idea of, hey, and in fact, I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day. If you read about the stripling warriors in the Book of Mormon, right, there's a whole segment that talks about how many of them had fainted for loss of blood, but no one had died. Like, none of us are getting through this unscathed. There's a beating that's going to happen. And there's multiple beatings that are going to happen. And the question is, are we going to stay down, or are we going to lay down and bleed for a minute, and then I'll get up and fight again? And I loved that thought process. And I thought it was cool to hear it in the context of the Buffalo Bills too. 4 years, as that team was running out of steam a few different times, he would quote that poem to him. So,
yeah, it reminds me of the closing chapters of the Book of Mormon, where people are laying on their sword and just like, right,
yeah,
fighting all day,
yeah,
bleeding out, getting back up and going at it again in the morning.
But I think that that attitude, at least for me, I mean, I don't embody this, but I want to embody this. This idea that things aren't going to go the way that you always want them to go. But for me, I want to be the type of person that's going to get back up and dust himself off and move forward. Sometimes I'm not great at that. Sometimes I'm more the guy that's going to curl up in the fetal position and cry, but I want to be that guy. And so I'm
hurt, but I'm not slain.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's hope, right?
There's hope, man. There's hope. Yeah.
Mitch, what's your take on that?
I like everything he said. I think that you have to find your hope. You find it in self-discipline, but you find it in the people around you as well. If you surround yourself with good people, you can go forward. It's all about looking up and going forward. In a religious context, it's about remembering the things that you prayed about that you know are true. Don't question them. Move forward. There's always hope. Don't give up, because the moment you rest, you're falling back. Life is meant to have friction in it. You're supposed to always be doing something, otherwise you're falling back.
I like that idea of friction, though. I mean, and that conversation has come up multiple times on the podcast.
That's rough stone rolling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that idea. I mean, I like the idea more than I like the reality of it, but I like it.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
But I also think too, Mitch, you mentioned the word remember, and I'm like on a huge kick on that, like for the past 10 years. I mean, that's been like rattling in my brain a lot. And
I think it's in your DNA code.
Yeah.
Right. I think honestly, that there's just some things there's some elements and aspects of the gospel that resonate, and I think certain hymns hit people differently.
Yeah.
I think in that premortal, right, in that premortal council, maybe you went to a lot of remember classes or something. It's like Tyler's going to be Mr. Remember.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
he's going to forget all the time, but that's going to be really important to him. But I love the idea. And I'll send this to you, Mitch, as well, but I sent Mike this Holland talk, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can quote Holland left and right. And I think the talk is called Remember.
Remember.
Right? But he talks about the difference between recollect and remember. And I mean, that's a mind blower for me. I really loved that idea that, we can
So it's
recollect the
BYU,
difficult times, right? Yeah, go ahead.
BYU Idaho commencement,
Mm-hmm.
2018, 19 maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. That recall and remember recalls kind of a more casual, remembers much more active, right?
Yeah.
It involves your senses. It involves the spirit. It involves so much.
Yeah,
We got to listen to him at a regional conference in South Carolina a year before he gave the talk, Cast Not Away Therefore Your Confidence at BYU. And he gave us the prototype talk for it. And I still have the notes for it. But that one hit me hard. And that helped me through the next 20 years of my life.
You were saying, Mitch, that talk helped you through the next 20 years of your life.
Yeah, because it was about the same subject you just talked about. It's about, here we are humans and on Earth, just like as the sand on the beach gets eroded and the imprints of your feet are slowly faded. That's human. That's the human existence. Spiritual things fade over time like dreams. And we have to remember and feel the truth of the things that we've already fought for. We have to hold tight to it and never question that and move forward. He says confidence comes from that. And he says the whole trick is remembering it. As humans, that's the hardest thing in the world for us to do. And most of the time when we sin, it's because we were neglectful and casual and we didn't remember certain things that would have kept us safe or guided us in a different direction.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he quotes a verse from verse 2 from in our LDS hymnal, number 80, God of our fathers, known of old. Rudyard Kipling wrote that.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not talking about a slouch here, right? We can go 4 hours.
Those slouchy hymn writers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, so he's not from the South. Is that what you're telling me? He's not like from Mississippi or Georgia or something?
Yeah, we're not. Right. So, Rudyard Kipling says the tumult, and picture this in the context of a commencement, right? Where you're sending graduates out into the world. He says, the tumult and the shouting dies. The captains and the kings depart. Still stands thine ancient sacrifice, and humble and a contrite heart. Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget. Lest we forget. And that's like licking a 9-volt battery right there, Tyler Gould. Like zing.
Yeah.
Right? Lest we forget.
Yeah.
And then I threw out the question, right? Okay, captains and kings, what are things that you don't want to forget? And like Mitch, you were talking about, like we've had these experiences where you need to go back sometimes. You need to go back to those sacred grove moments. You need to recall those things, all of it, all the senses, all of it, right?
I think we need to go back to them, but I think, and I totally agree. And I was just talking to a group of people on Sunday about this and this idea of like burning them into your soul, so that you can just recall them quickly. But I think part of at least for me, part of the recall process is recreating or creating new moments where I can have similar feelings.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I look back on those things that I've experienced that are transformational for me, and I want to keep those fresh, right? But in order for me to keep them fresh, I want to try to recreate or create a new experience where I have that same feeling, right? And I'm always afraid of this. Like I don't want to get caught standing and going, okay, yeah, 15 years ago, man, it was good. And so that's what I want to hang my hat on. I want to say 15 years ago was good, and yesterday was equally as good, if not better, because I had this experience. And so then 15 years down the road, I'm not looking 30 years away, right? I'm looking at that 15 years.
So really, really dorky example, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a senior at Red Bluff High School, and they have a historic docent program.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to be working in a circa like 1850s historic park. Kids are going to come from school. I'm dressed in period clothes and I'm helping them. I'm a blacksmith. I'm a carpenter. Right. Well, one of the stations, I'm making candles with tallow. Right. So the kids take a stick and a string and they dip it in pull it out, the wax cools. Dip it in, pull it out, the wax cools. And over time, that wax is strong.
Right.
Right? Like that idea of, and in my mind, that's how I grow spiritually. Like those things, thank you for that growth. Dip it back in. Dip it back in. And over time, right, you've got this ability to wax strong, and your confidence will wax strong in the presence of God is one of those promises, because you're doing work. You're not forgetting 20 years ago, but 20 years ago, building on it. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, long way to go.
No, that was really well said. I like that. For me, though, I like to write things down, not in the heat of the moment. I find that can be distracting. But I go and I take my walk, I digest things, and I come home and I write these things down. Because for me, receiving that inspiration or remembering these things, it's important and it's real and it comes back to me. But I think there's more to it. I think you have to tease out the stuff that God expects you to still determine, because he's not going to tell you everything. And by writing this thing down, I feel that I'm able to better understand what happened. It also gives me something to recollect later, to make it easier for me to get back into that mode and understand what actually did happen. Because hindsight's 20/20, but when you're in the thick of it, you're only seeing what's immediate.
Yeah.
But when you look back, you can say, that's what happened, and you can do what you were talking about, try and implement that and have that experience again in a different way. But Mike's totally right. Each layer shapes the next and makes you stronger,
Yeah. I just think, we've had a discussion, I think, early on about, and I think Mike and I've had this in the past, but just this idea of, asking yourself, when was I at my best? Right. And if the answer is like 10 years ago, oh man, that's when I was really nailing it. Like, what's going on now? Like, because I think the challenge is to be your best today. Right. So it's shortening those gaps of when I was at my best. Cause really I want to be able to, if you ask me that question, I probably will tell you it was like however long ago. Right. But I want to be able to say it was yesterday or it was 2 hours ago when I was really killing it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
But that feedback loop, right? Otherwise you're in an echo chamber.
Right.
I mean, you need to be able to, somebody's got to, again, those five people, maybe 3 or 4 of them on higher ground can give you some feedback and like, let you know, hey, maybe this, right?
Yeah.
Maybe work on this, or, hey, what are you learning about this? Even just having you reflect, like Mitch, I love the idea of writing things down. And I'm a big fan of this book, 21 Principles by Richard G. Scott. And he actually shares an example where in a moment he sets himself aside, pulls out a notebook, and he's starting to write some things, and he's receiving some revelation regarding a personal question that he had. He writes it down, and then he has this magical thought of like, he says, I was then impressed to ask, was there yet more to be given?
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, I received further impressions, and the process of writing down the impressions, pondering and praying for confirmation was repeated. Again, I was prompted to ask, is there more I should know?
Mm-hmm.
Man, how many of us are taking the time and the intentionality to seek for it? When it comes, say, hey, any more?
Yep.
You got
Yeah.
some more?
I like that a lot. I think a component of that is like, maybe there's a delicate balance to this idea of like introspection, right? It's like, you don't want to be like, beating yourself up, right? But I think there has to be an honest conversation with yourself.
Well, and I think too, Tyler, I'm going to quote one of your favorite lines, but like there's introspection, there's planning, thinking, praying, pondering, but the Lord wants you on the floor.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like eventually nothing is better than doing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
You know,
I agree with that. Yeah. And maybe that's the you know, that's the piece that really takes introspection from like just beating yourself up about stuff, right? Because if you're willing to say, hey, this is where I'm falling short, and now I'm going to go do some things about where I think I need to improve, I think that's where you start to really see some growth, right? But if we just say, yeah, here's where I'm falling short and I suck, I'm not good enough, you know, then
and in those steps towards doing something, you're entering the arena. You're now the man in the arena.
Yeah.
Right. You're now getting it. You're getting it kicked out of you, but you're in there and you're doing it. And last time I checked, God doesn't say, well thought out or well planned, my good and faithful servant, right? Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I'll make you master over many. It's well done.
Yeah.
It's not well prayed for. It's not well thought out. Hey, way to put that down on paper. There's a time and a place for that. And then it's in the doing. Kind of like where Mitch was going, just full circle. That action is a required element to receiving revelation.
I love
Something
that.
has to change, or I'm not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
He knows your heart, right?
Yeah. But I think both of you have hit it quite nicely with the people you're surrounded by. Those 5 people. The quality of those people does matter. You know, it's not that we want to neglect others and exclude them. The last time we talked, I talked about loving the people who are difficult to love, noticing the people who change and are there because their lives depend on it, the people on the back row. You know, things like that. We don't want to exclude people, but when you are trying to honestly adjust and change yourself for the better, you do have to talk to people who you trust that can give you an honest, unbiased assessment so you can know what to look at. Because I believe you two are probably like me. You're probably quite hard on yourselves when you judge yourself. Well, this is me. This is where I'm broken. I'm never going to get over this, or how am I going to do this? But if you ask someone else, don't they always delicately put it slightly differently?
Well, and in that beating ourselves up, comparison enters that picture.
Right.
And we know what that does.
Yep.
Well, and I think too, it's, you know, if you're going to learn to swim, you got to have someone who's with you that knows how to swim, right?
That's right.
You don't want two poor swimmers out in the deep
end. Somewhere you got to insert some expertise, right?
Absolutely.
And that expertise usually comes from experience, right? So you're going to talk to somebody who's a couple steps down the trail you're on, right? And that's the whole purpose. That's the whole purpose of the podcast. I mean, Mitch, honestly, since we left you with that first episode, I just love that thought that your dad shared, right? His closing words was just, do it better than me. Right? Yeah. Do it better than I did, because otherwise for what?
Yeah, what's the point, you know?
Yeah.
I love that line, and I guess it's the Return of the King, you know, where King Theoden is out there on the field and he's dying, and the woman's holding him, and he says, now I'm not ashamed to return to my forefathers. I've totally ruined that quote. You'll have to look it up. But basically, this man has been a steward of men and of a kingdom, and he's trying to measure up. He's trying to be the man he needs to be. And at the end, he is able to fulfill his purpose, and he says, now I will not be ashamed. And when I return to the hall of my forefathers, or what have you. And I think that's the old expression that a lot of us have is in our hearts, is we want to measure up.
Yeah.
But to do that, you have to do what you two are talking about. You have to look at yourself honestly and change.
We believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yep. There's a price. There's a haul, right? Like, there's gonna be something expected of us, or we'll self-select other company, right? Like, we know how faithful people live their lives, and if we're not paying that price, not that. Listen, I want to make sure I clarify. I'm not saying that Mike Freeman is going to pay a price that's going to come even close to saving my soul.
Right.
That price has been paid. But as a faithful disciple of Jesus Christ, what are you putting forth?
Yeah, he's going to demand something. He's going to demand hard things of each of us.
He's going to ask questions, right?
That's
What did
right.
you do? What did you do with the light that was given?
Yeah.
Right?
What did you learn?
I
You
think.
know, what if you stood before God and he said, "What did you learn?" And that was the big question. What would you say? You know?
Oof, that's a good. That's a good question, man.
I think of Moses. I think of Moses for now. I know man is nothing.
Yep.
Which thing I'd never considered before. Right? Like
That
in
would
the
be a very
end,
good answer.
we're amazed.
Can we quote that when we're there and we're asked that question, or we have to have our own?
Well, I would imagine he would follow up with a really big doozy like this. Who did you learn it from?
Well, I like that question a lot. I really like that question a lot because I love the idea of like the search, right? I mean, this is why, Mitch, this is why we're talking tonight, right? Is because, the hope is that together that we unearth a few things and I mean, gosh, if that was a question, who did you learn it from? My list would be really long, man.
But let's go back and tie that into pigs and hogs, right? Because pigs are learning. Hogs are spitting out things that they think other people, right? Pigs are like, I'm scrambling, I'm hustling, I'm grinding. Hogs are like, let me tell you something. Right? Where are we at? Because I can tell you, in my stage in life, I can be pretty good at telling people things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? Leading with our ears and listening so that we can learn what other people have to tell us. Because, Mitch, I think that's an inspired question. What did you learn, and who did you learn it from?
Yeah. No, I love that. It's funny. I was just I was teaching a class on Sunday to a group of people, and afterward, a young man, probably 12 years old, right, in the middle of my, I don't know, maybe I was being a hog at the moment, like in the middle of my, I had this thing going, I was jamming, man, and he like raised his hand, like in the middle of it, and I was like, yeah, what's on your mind? And he dropped some science on me, man, and I was just like, I had to stop, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's so profound, And afterward, he comes up to me, this little 12-year-old, man, and he's like, he started talking to me about it again, like totally instructing me, man. And I absolutely loved it. So my list of who did you learn it from is going to have to include the unnamed 12-year-old. I don't know what his name was, but man, he was...
We'll just call him Junior for now. We'll go with that.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, can you get into this Steve Jobs thing, because I'm on two sides of a fence here on this. So I love the message.
I gotta share it, right?
Yeah.
I gotta share it, and this lines up right with this. The whole purpose of this show, right, is to look at life different, right? Realize that there's happiness right in front of us. Realize that life is rich, right? We invite folks like Mitch. They tell us, what do you want? What do you think I got to offer? Right. And then he dumps 2 hours of wisdom and we bring him back. Right. Like that's the whole purpose. I stumbled on this. I shared it. I'm going to put it out there. Here we go. These are the last words of Steve Jobs, billionaire with a B. I've reached the summit of success in the world of business. In the eyes of others, my life is a success. However, aside from work, I had little joy. In the end, wealth is just a fact I am used to. At this moment, laying on my hospital bed, remembering my whole life, I realized that all the gratitude and wealth in which I took so much pride, there's that word pride, has vanished and became meaningless in the face of imminent death. You can hire someone to drive your car or make money for you, but it's impossible to hire someone to deal with sickness and die for you. Material things lost can be found, but there is one thing that can never be found when it is lost: life. Whatever stage of life we're currently in, with time, we will face it the day the curtain closes. Love your family, spouse, and friends. Treat them right. Cherish them. As we get older and wiser, we slowly realize that wearing a $300 or $30 watch both give the same hour. Whether we have a $300 or $30 wallet or purse, the amount inside is the same. Whether we drive a $150,000 car or a $30,000 car, or like mine, like a $7,000 car, the road and distance are the same, and we arrive at the same destination. That the house we live in is 300 or 3,000 square feet, the loneliness is the same. You will realize that your true inner happiness does not come from the material things of this world. Whether you travel first class or economic class, if the plane crashes, you crash with it. Therefore, I hope you realize when you have friends, boyfriends and old friends, brothers and sisters with whom you argue, laugh, talk, sing, talk about north, south, east, or heaven and earth, this is the real happiness. An indisputable fact of life. Don't educate your kids to be rich. Educate them to be happy. So when they grow up, they will know the value of things and not the price.
Yeah, so I read that and I like it. Obviously, the message I think is phenomenal, right? It's about what you're chasing. I mean, let's hope that we're figuring these lessons out before we're lying on a hospital bed, right? That's the whole goal.
That's
the rub in the whole thing. You know?
And that's the thing we've been wrestling with, right? How do you live with a diagnosis without the diagnosis?
But the thing of it is, it's like I feel like I'm a pretty happy person and I'm a pretty content person, but I am chasing things that don't matter. That's a fact, man. I'm chasing things that don't matter. And sometimes my pursuit of things that don't matter is directly blocking the path of the things that do matter. Like the vision of the things that matter are obscured by my pursuit of the things that don't matter.
And sometimes I'm walking by the thing that matters.
100%.
Like I'm walking past a diamond on my path for $5.
100%. Yeah. I do that all the time. I'd say that I've used that line all the time. Yeah.
Well, I think too, like, and then you get it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hit.
Yeah.
Right.
And
you get the thing you've been pursuing that you're like, oh, yep, this is gonna, and you're there.
And it doesn't matter.
It's a vain thing.
And I think this goes back to that conversation earlier though about remember. You know, because I think that if somehow we could have this, you know, this constant reminder of the things that are important, and it, you know, I say somehow facetiously because there's a way for us to do this, right? But if we can have a reminder of the things that are important, then, you know, this pursuit, even though it may be worthy, doesn't have to be all consuming. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm a believer in balance. I think that we have to have balance, even though I think balance, you know, my take on balance, it's a myth.
Right.
Man.
It's a myth.
It's a myth. But I think I'm a believer that there's some level in there that we can say, hey, you know, this thing that I am pursuing is worthy of pursuit, but it's not the thing that's going to ultimately bring me, you know, lasting happiness. If you will, you know.
Well, the thing to keep in mind too is that we're human and we have our own interests. We're all wired differently, and these talents that we have and these abilities that we're trying to nurture will pull us in different directions. Whether you're going to go out there and watch certain shows, or whether you're going to sit out and draw and create art, or create music, or play games, or whatever, or go do a sport, we all get pulled different directions based on who we are and what we enjoy doing. And you're right, there needs to be some type of a balance, even though balance is like control, it's an illusion. There has to be something there that gives us interest and variety, because that's what makes you who you are. That's what makes me who I am. But you're right, if you put too much into one area, then you become dysfunctional in another, pretty much.
Yeah.
When I shared with you, I'm reading The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's a remarkable book. And I shared with you an excerpt, right? I took a picture, and that's when you know Mike's got a good book, when all of a sudden Saturday, Tyler Gould's phone starts lighting up with me taking pictures of pages. But she shares this thought, right? She feels like something is lacking, that she's got this amazing life, but she feels like she wants to explore this topic of happiness. And so she says, but though at times I felt dissatisfied that something was missing, I also never forgot how fortunate I was. When I woke in the middle of the night, as I often did, I'd walk from one room to another to gaze at my sleeping husband tangled in the sheets and my daughters, right, surrounded by their stuffed animals. We've all had that moment. We're just walking around a quiet, quiet house and checking in on kids, and like life is good, right? I had everything I could possibly want, yet I was failing to appreciate it. Bogged down in petty complaints and passing crises, weary of struggling with my own nature, I too often failed to comprehend the splendor of what I had. I didn't want to keep taking these days for granted. The words of the writer Colette had haunted me for years. What a wonderful life I've had. I only wish I'd realized it sooner. I didn't want to look back at the end of my life or after some great catastrophe and think how happy I used to be then, if only I'd realized it. And
Okay.
that's our pursuit, right?
That's the pursuit. Yeah.
That's like our mission statement for this pod. Hey, Mike, why do you spend so much time on this podcast?
Yeah.
There are people that have amazing lives, myself included, and we're walking right by the amazing.
But it's an awareness, you know. We're trying to awaken that awareness so that we can pick up on these things, so that these things are obvious and we can take advantage of it.
And
Otherwise,
Tyler,
you're asleep at the wheel, you know.
Yeah, and Tyler, we're just trying to wake ourselves up, and if it just so happens to land on some other people, and people can realize that, wow, life is actually pretty freaking amazing.
So let me ask this question to Mitch, because Mitch is the man with the wisdom.
You're killing me, dude. Right. Seriously. I can see your viewership just dropping every minute. This is not going to go well.
It's plummeting. All right, look, but I'm willing to risk the viewership for the answer to this question, because I love that excerpt that you just read, Mike, and I'm curious what are you guys doing that helps you maintain your focus on the things that are really bringing you happiness? Because I'll be honest, man, I want to drive a $150,000 car. I want to drive it fast. Like, I want to see how fast that thing will go. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do that. So I don't want to be distracted by that. But what are you guys doing to keep things in focus?
Well, it's a hard thing. It comes down to self-mastery to a degree. You know, there's only so much time. There's only so much time in your day, only so much time in your week. You only have so much physical capability during that time. And certain people need your attention and certain people need your efforts. And, you know, for me, I'm not trying to make every answer I say spiritually related, but I'm not capable of sorting all of that out on my own sometimes. And I have to lean on Brooke. I have to lean on God to help me get my priorities right. And I find that if I put those things first that I need to do, I find those little pockets of moments to do things that I might want to do, that add that little bit of richness to my life to help me continue to develop my talents and grow and relax and think things over. Because I think that a lot of times we put other people first or family first, and we put ourselves on the back shelf. That's a disaster waiting to happen, because you're not developing you. You're not giving yourself time to even sit back and think things over and say, this could have gone better if I'd have done it this way, or I really liked how that worked out and I liked the way that made me feel. That made me happy. I'm happy when I'm involved with other people, when they rely on me and I can help them, or I can share something with them, or just when they share something with me and it enriches my life. And I say, you know what? I'm happiest when I have other people with me. So all of a sudden, that's a priority. I make time for those type of activities that will do that. But for me, you have to sit down every day and sort things out and say, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to make me happy. And if it's not essential, it just has to go.
Yeah.
I hate to
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to be dorky, but I'm going Foursquare. I'm going children and youth.
Yeah.
I'm going trying to develop as the Savior developed. And I'm looking at how are things, do I have physical ambitions? Do I have spiritual ambitions and goals, social and intellectual? And am I again, balance is a myth, but whole isn't.
Right. Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
And being developed and not necessarily being myopic and only focusing on one aspect of life. Life can be complicated. We can overcomplicate things, but I think if we keep things in front of us, we know the value of scriptures comes as part of the power of scriptures is that it keeps eternal truths in front of us. Right. And I think that as we have these structures, spirit journals, notebooks, morning routine and process where we can reflect, patriarchal blessings to kind of remind us of, hey, there's a potential out there. I think that those things help. And honestly, I kind of have, Tyler, you have that passion for remembering. I feel like almost like on a spiritual level, Matthew 25, parable of the 10 virgins, when what the bridegroom says to the foolish virgins keeps me up at night. Right? Like, I know ye not, and I think that Mitch talking about what have you learned and who did you learn it from? He's expecting me to be somebody. Like, I think in his mind, like he knew who I was before I came to this earth, and he's expecting this experience to make me into that person he knows I can be. And I got a window of time, right? Brethren, we got a window of time that we got to hit, and we got to hit it hard, and we got to hit it with passion, and we got to suck the nectar out of this thing, because I would hate to show up and he's like, that's not the Mike Freeman I know. What happened? Right? Somebody took a wrong turn at Albuquerque or something. So, I mean, I think that patterning it after him and striving, I love that word, striving, just striving to develop some degree of wholeness.
Well, it's like what you're talking about with the missionary that came home early. He's doing his work. That's what he's doing. He's doing what you're talking about, Mike. He's striving. His life.
And he's got a long term, right?
Yep. He's looking long term, near term, and his happiness, he knew his happiness depended on him doing some difficult things.
Yeah. I
talked
think
about that last time, Mitch.
Tyler, I've probably shared. We're not talking crazy big things.
No, small.
Yeah.
Right.
The funny thing is, small decisions affect so much. They really do. Yeah, everyone wants that big heroic moment where this big thing happened and that was a landmark item. But truthfully, it's the small things. Yeah. It's always the small things.
Yeah, I'm 46 years old. I got a list of micro challenges I'm trying to do, right? Micro challenges, meaning these things are representative of bigger things.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I've never hit 10 free throws in a row in my life. I had a micro challenge, hit 10 for 10.
Yeah.
I came home the other day smiling ear to ear, right? Abe's like, what's going on? I'm like, I just hit 10 for 10, which means I've been going to the gym, which means I'm trying to take care of myself, which means, right? That 10 for 10, it seems like a petty little thing, but dang it, I just hit 10 free throws in a row. And that's something I've never done before, right? It seems like a little thing, but it's like, it's not.
Did you have a witness to that?
I did not. Kanye on my Pandora channel was my witness.
That's good. Yeah, that works.
He's not a very trusty witness.
I was about to say, that's not very reliable, boss.
So I gotta like steer us off course a little bit here.
Go for it. I knew this was coming.
Because I got an email the other day from Mitch, and Mike, you were on this email, and
I don't recall sending anything.
There was a surly-looking crew of rockers in a photo, and I gotta know I gotta know the background on this, man.
How do we spend 2 hours and that never comes up?
Yeah.
Well, I've never even told you the rest of the Chuck Norris story, so I'll have to tell you that one after that.
So let's just consider this the B track, right?
Okay.
This is the B side. Talk to us.
So if anybody was dorky enough to stick with us this far, then they get the funny material.
Right. Fill in some gaps here.
That's right. Talk to me about this, Mitch.
About the band.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so it's funny you should ask, because that dorky picture has us all wearing these Halloween costumes and just jamming, because we really needed a break and we needed to de-stress. There was a lot going on. But the cool thing about the purpose of the band was we'd all played musical instruments before. I played in college. We won Battle of the Bands. Since I threw the thing, my dad and his band had won in Atlanta and the regional Battle of the Bands. And when we were in college, we wanted to do the same thing. And we were the organizers for it. And, I kind of cheated. Even though we don't believe in drinking, we all know that college students are going to drink. And it's a safe environment where they were going to do it. And I said, guys, listen up. If we put ourselves last, we're going to win.
We're going to sound great.
We're going to sound awesome. The more they drink, the better we sound. And, so we won, and it's a hollow victory, because I don't know if we were actually that good or not. And I was really good. I play guitar and stuff like that. But, when MS came along, it made it hard. So for many years, I didn't. And so at work, a bunch of the attorneys said, look, we should start a band, because I'd been asking them to play, and they said, yeah, the pandemic's going to come, things are going to shut down, but it'll eventually pass. What will we have done with ourselves? Will we stay who we are? Will we fall back, or will we move forward? We could at least be a little bit better when it's all over with. And we can't do it on our own, because we're 45 and we know that we haven't done it yet. So we surrounded ourselves with people who wanted to have the same goal, and we have progressed and just had a blast with it. And so down at the law firm there on Willis Street, in the bottom floor, we've converted the giant library to a studio.
Oh,
and we're arguing over the name, whether it's Willis Street Boys, the Toe Tags, or Other Side of the Tracks, or something like that. But, I got Alex on keyboards, and Josh Devine comes in and plays drums, too. And we've got Tony, who plays drums as well. But another Kelly and Paul, they play guitar with me. And
so how would you classify the genre of the
dude, we're so old, we just play anything. we love to play current stuff, but classic rock and stuff from the 70s, 80s, and 90s we really like.
Now, is there a recorded track of the
we have a few,
tags?
But not with us all together. We're going to put one together here shortly.
All right.
Okay, so I'm the only person who's never been in a band.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. If you want to come over for band practice, we'll put something in your hand.
Yeah, you
we'll
get a tambourine.
Yeah, so Mitch, I don't know if you know, but our intro music for the richest men in town is Tyler's band.
Get out of town.
It is, yeah.
Dude,
back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. That was...
So I'm hanging out with
I knew quality when I heard it.
I'm hanging out with a couple musical savants, and I'm just like, you know what? I will say, senior year, I did win a lip sync contest.
Hey, listen, that counts for something, because some of the professional musicians can't even do that on TV now.
Yeah.
Right. So if you need a front man that can just lip sync, I got you.
Oh yeah.
Milli Vanilli couldn't lip sync. That was their downfall, man.
Dude, we had one guy lay down a track, and I said, "That's pretty good. If we play it backwards, it might work." And he's like, "Oh, come on!" And then one other guy invented a note that wasn't even on the scale. I'm like, "Dude, how in the world how did you make that noise?"
So included in this email that you're denying exists.
Did you hack my account? Is that
there was some breathing fire shenanigans. What is this?
Yeah. Okay, so I was in Spain for my mission, right, and had some kidney issues and came home for surgery, and they're like, "We're going to send you to finish up in Texas. It's a tame mission. You still get to speak Spanish. It'll be on the southern border. We're going to send you down to Brownsville, McAllen, and South Padre Island. We're going to stick you with a couple of really good guys. They love it. They love it here. They'll teach you how to have fun, because we know you're not quite back to 100%. And I said, sure, man, whatever. So they put me in this car and drive me for 6 hours. 9:30 at night, I arrive in Port Isabel, Texas, which is it's right there on the ocean and on the Gulf. And South Padre Island is 1 mile away. And we pull up to the apartment, which is in this, basically it was a little drug village on this one side. It was the hood. It was very dangerous. There's this big crowd out there on the street looking up on the second floor balcony, and there's 2 elders up there blowing fire 12, 13, 14 feet. And there's a picture of the Lord sitting there in the window looking down on everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they know how to have fun, all right. This is insane. So we pull up and I walk up there and everybody thinks we're coming to do the halftime show. And I'm like, no, this is fine. So later that night they showed me how they do it. And I got really good at it. And basically what you do is you take a piece of rolled up newsprint and you hold it out at arm's length and you lower it a little bit because you're going to take cornstarch, load your mouth up with it, and all but projectile vomit this stuff out, dude. Now cornstarch, if you stick it out there and it's atomized properly, that stuff will burn like nobody's business and it will do a massive flame. Don't use flour. That would be a very bad idea. But
cornstarch.
Cornstarch.
I had no
So
idea.
hold on. So you're standing there with a mouthful of cornstarch ready to spew it on a flame.
And boy, let me tell you, with a little bit of a wind, you can get about 15 feet and you can actually do some damage to something. But here's the funniest part.
Like your face. Right?
Yeah, this gets better. Some kid tried it and he couldn't hold the thing, so I held it for him. And he blew it right at me and burnt my arm badly. I mean, it's pretty dangerous. But the funniest part is cornstarch, if it gets on the back of your tongue and back of your throat, it will definitely kick in a gag reflex. Next thing you know, you got people vomiting all over the place. And, I was trying to teach it to the young men once up in Massachusetts. And this poor kid, he says, I've got to do it. He's only just entered the scouting program a month. He says, I've got to do this awesome thing. So we're in the back porch there with about 6 other people and a dog. What do you think happened? He dumps his stuff all over him, gags in his coffin and blows on the fire, burns his brother. Then he pukes all over the ground and on his brother's foot. Well, then the brother pukes and the dog slips in it and is rolling all around. And then they puke on the dog. Now, while I'm sitting here assessing this damage, thinking, I think maybe the evening could have gone a little bit better, I look back there and there's a guy behind us trying to blow fire again. So we've got this fire coming over the top of us. And I'm like, you know what? Everybody just give me the matches. I think we're done for the night. And we had to get the hose out and hose people down. And I have to be careful who I teach it to because one of them went home, and he's a great guy. I love him to death. But when his parents weren't home, he kind of misunderstood the assignment and tried it in the kitchen. Did not end well. But yeah, it's cornstarch and flame.
I had no idea, man.
It works
It's like
great.
the magician is just telling us his secret right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like,
But there's still some other tricks to it. The trick is to not throw up. It makes you look like a dork.
Yeah, that would end a lot of magic shows. We have a whole different thing going on, right?
Oh, yeah.
David
Look,
Copperfield barfing on the...
dude, that's the funniest thing ever. I taught it to the missionaries just a couple days ago because we had one leaving, and he wanted to have this work. So we go up to the church parking lot because there's all this pavement. We can't burn anything down. I don't want to go to jail. This is California. So I'm teaching him how to do this, and he's dumping this stuff all over. And he's not paying attention to the flame, and he's moving it closer and closer. His hand's drawing back, and I'm like, we're all going to die. Because he's dousing himself with this, and I'm like, yep, he's goner. But they got some good ones in. It was pretty cool.
Send him home with no eyebrows and,
Only one of them puked.
I'm pretty sure that's not in the... that's not outlawed or prohibited in the white.
It will be tomorrow, I guarantee it. Once the photos get around.
Book.
That thing's been around for years, that trick with the missionaries. Come on now.
So and you're holding out on some Chuck Norris?
Yeah, dude. Just a little bit.
Let's
Let's
hear it.
Spill it.
All right, so you know that I was telling you about how, you know, my teachers and their teachers were all learned from him, and we would go for testing every 2 to 3 years. It is a rotation type thing, and you go up to Norfolk, Virginia, where they would, you know, you'd go to the home dojo, and you could sit along the perimeter of this giant mat, and then you'd have 10 judges up there who would put people through black belt training. And if you came prepared, you could spar with them a little bit. It was fun. And these people, you know, they're like icons. These are people you look at like, these are the top elites, you know. It was really neat to go and watch them do these testing and put them through the drills. Because when you did your testing from like blue belt up, it was just a smaller version of that. You know, so you're watching the real test, the one that yours was always modeled after. And when Mr. Norris would come in, he would sit in the middle and he would have 6 on one side and 6 on another, judges. And they would sit in the front of the room, and each one of them was looking for something slightly different. And you watched them wear these people out because they knew their stuff. They knew when they went there, they were tested before they had to qualify before you went to this. These people knew their things, but he would test them for 10 hours on everything from fighting to stances, the katas. How do you teach this? How do you do that? Demonstrate this. From boards to bricks, cinder blocks. I mean, these things were amazing. I watched one guy put his hands through 10 paving stones and then turn around and put it right through 8 planks of wood with a karate chop, and it was like it wasn't even there. You know, these people, they understood the technique. They understood how to make things work. But I'll tell you what changed me, and it was really interesting because this is a life lesson for me. Leave it to me to turn something funny into something serious. But we're sitting there on the perimeter watching the grand finale, and I told you that the real test for the black belt is not really what you did during the day. That's like 20% of your score. You could fail the whole day and still pass the test. The test was they put the 200-pound, 220-pound Sugar Ray Leonard bag up on the beam. It's got to come down, or you have to pass out trying. You've got 10 minutes. Now, after you've spent 10 hours wearing yourself out, and the mental focus is extreme because there's a lot of detail to keep track of. You're exhausted mentally, physically, you're emotionally about to break, and somebody's just giving you an impossible task to take a bag off of 4 chains with a swivel in the middle of it. I mean, you know, that's a soul-crushing test for somebody to put at you. Isn't that like life? You know, what they didn't know, and I've sat as a judge for other things, but not for this. What they don't tell them is the bag is not expected to come down. You're not expected to overcome that challenge by defeating it. You're supposed to endure it. If you take it easy to make your stamina last 10 minutes, you fail. If you go easy on the bag with your combinations at any point, if you take a break to just catch a breath, you fail. In other words, you showed up and you what you've got is what you have to attack that bag with. You were expected to pass out after giving it everything you needed. And I remember him talking to us afterwards because I was a little bit concerned. In any sport, you got those people who are naturally gifted. They've got the strategic mind, they've got the body for it, they've got the talent to just make things happen. And then you've got those who just work and work and work. They're great support, they enjoy the game, but they're not what we would call the pros. Why did the elites always get their belt, and occasionally those who passed out doing it not only get the belt, but get the next level advancement? It made me think, wait a minute, maybe taking the bag down wasn't really the obstacle after all. And that's when he got up and gave a talk. And one guy, he was a big fellow like me, he attacked that bag, and after 9 minutes, he passed out. And I don't mean he was just kind of worn, laying on the ground. He was gone. He passed out. He broke his leg. He had hit the bag so hard. Now, to do that at such a close range tells you the kind of effort he was putting into it. He got 2 ranks that day. And Chuck Norris told us, he says, some obstacles you overcome immediately. Others you were never expected to overcome, but you have to endure them. You have to do everything you can to stand your ground and be not moved, as it says in the scriptures. He says, It tests your integrity, it tests your discipline, and it tests your ability to move forward and not give up. It says we were testing your spirit the whole day. We were never testing anything else. He says we didn't expect you to take the bag down. We wanted to see if you would give it everything you've got, even in the face of ultimate despair. And that stuck with me because I grew up in Hurricane Alley. A category 4 or 5 coming over the top of the house and stalling out for a while and then proceeding was not uncommon. Some obstacles you don't take out. You endure it and you become something different. And that was his motto. And the way he said it, it was inspiring because he really believed that. He believed that all of us in our lives would face something that would require everything that we have. But that even if we knew we were going to lose, we would fight it anyway. And he looked at us and he says, the only way you were to really win this and come out is you had to lose. You had to lose to the bag. And for me, that stumped me for years, being a young man. I mean, this was my game. I mean, this is what I was good at. I took the bag down. I broke the swivel. If you know how to work it, you can kick it and let that momentum work with you, and you can soften it up and take that thing down. And I felt that was an incredible achievement. And you know what he said about that? He says, the people who were gifted tried hard, and it was a challenge for them. He says, but those who don't have that, they were required to give their all. And it reminded me of the widow's mite. Who gave more? You know, it's just, there was just so much to it, and it was a very simple exercise.
I'm curious, Mitch, if at the end of that, did he say we're all going to have to endure trials, but trials have to endure Chuck Norris?
Yep, he's the only one I know that's bold to strike with a marble.
That's right.
but you know, we watched him. The beauty thing is, in all seriousness, we watched him. It was very beautiful. He took on the bag, and he showed us the commitment level that was required. And after minutes, the assault didn't stop. And these weren't light hits. I mean, it was insane. And he says, you know, you have to be prepared. This is how you do it. You stand your ground, knowing that you're going to lose. And, you know, there were a lot of funny things. There was one dude, you know, you're really messed up if the dude before you that goes to the bag is all sweaty and greasy and he ain't showered in a couple of days, because that bag's going to be pretty slick. And when you hit it, it's going to roll on you. And you're going to be like, oh, no, this is going to be a long 10 minutes, you know. So the smart ones learn to take a little towel with them. But, you know, it was a really neat experience because, you know, we joke about him a lot, and he's entertaining, but that was something that stuck with me forever so far.
I feel like I have a new depth of knowledge about Mitch Lowther today, even more than I had the other day. And there's two things I'm really looking forward to. One is the debut of the toe tags here on the richest men in town.
Yep.
Right? I'm looking forward to that. And I think that the first live show for the toe tags in front of an audience has to be at the Gopher Hill Festival, right?
Oh, dude, man, you've got it. We've got to get us a turtle and put a number on that thing. We need to have some of the young men climbing a grease pole and
then just, no, I think the sisters of the Gopher Hill Festival are going to have a little bone to pick with Mike Freeman, because as the editor of the show notes, I posted their cookbook, and I feel like it's almost criminal because I didn't buy it.
I bought it, and my aunt's the one that typed it up, so I'm not too concerned about it. Yeah, she was head of the Chamber of Commerce and put that thing together, and that cookbook was made way back when, and all they're doing is they're just making copies and putting a cover on it. But in truth, in the South, if you want one, most people have 3 or 4 copies. They just give you one.
So we're not pirates.
Not until the legal letter shows up, says cease and desist. We're good.
Well, listen, I want to. I know that we just had you on the show, and here we are, you know, right around the corner doing this again. But I feel like I can't end this show without the question. So I'm going to throw it out to you, Mike, as well. All right?
Yeah, I want to hear Mike's response.
This is to Mike and Mitch. You don't get to duck, but you get to think for a minute as Mike thinks about this. But Mike, we've talked today. What does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
Oh man, we're taking our own medicine tonight.
Taking your own medicine, man.
Taking our own medicine. To me, right now, with the things that I'm learning from our guests on our podcast, the richest men in town have the best stories. I think that there's something powerful. This podcast has unlocked the power of story in my life, the power of other people's story to impress upon me those things that I need to learn. And I think that if we're truly living life, we're going to be collectors of stories, right? We're going to be able to sit around a campfire, right? Midnight, s'mores are done. We wipe those out, and now we're talking, right? And we're talking about those stories of maybe stories where tender mercies have been experienced, right? And we're letting people in on some of those things. And maybe it's jovial company and it's irreverent fun, right?
We can definitely cover that.
Right. But it's a bag full. Yeah. It's a bag full of stories. And really, when you think about it, we die twice, right, Tyler? Right? The first time when we're in the ground, the second time when they stop talking about us. Well, if we've lived a life full of experiences and stories, we'll live on in barbershops forever, brother, right? They'll be telling stories. Remember that time this? Remember that time we did this thing, that thing? To me, that's a rich life. And especially if at the center of that story is faith, right? The center of that is the greatest story ever told, and that of Jesus of Nazareth and how we're striving to be like him. So richest men in town, collector of great stories. And they don't have to be yours, right? You could be listening to a podcast and you could hear a great story and you put that in your bag and you pull it out and you share it to teach your principal. So
you better believe Gopher Hill Festival's already been told in the week between. I've already told it like 3 times.
I thought that was a great answer. The funny thing is, most of my stories start with me thinking of Jack Burton's quote from Big Trouble Little China in my head. It's like, I'm a reasonable guy, but I've just experienced some unreasonable things. That's always going to lead to a story. And you've got these stories, and I agree with you, Mike, 100%. That's a beautiful answer. You can't get these stories if you're not connected with people. Because most people, if we just be honest and brutal about it, we're boring people. Our lives don't have a lot of spice. That spice comes from other people and interaction with them, good, bad, ugly, whatever. But I tell you what's the jewel is that story you can't tell. That story that's so personal and so sacred that means the absolute world to you, that you shared with someone that truly could not be told because not only would be inappropriate, but you couldn't because no one would understand it. Those jewels really make you rich, and that only comes when you have people in your life that help you have these stories, you know.
Yeah, I dig that. Stories don't happen in a vacuum.
They don't. They're boring if they do. It's like a 4th grade recorder concert. You just endure it because it's brutal. You know?
Whoa. Don't knock on recorders, because when you said some guys in the office play musical instruments, I thought I could probably do Hot Cross Buns on a recorder.
Well, we did have a guy try that. We had a guy try a Snoopy harp, and then one kid brought in, this little xylophone, and it was really bad when the good instruments like that sound better than the ones that we bought that are professionally made, you know. Like a Les Paul is supposed to sound pretty dang good, but, you know, when somebody's playing on a xylophone and that's holding a tune and you can't, that's kind of a bad sign. You need a new hobby.
Well, I did see that the Beatles, when they wrote Strawberry Fields Forever, came up with that intro on a recorder type instrument. So there you go.
There you go.
There you go. You never know.
You never know what's going to strike you for inspiration.
That's right.
But we don't have a wash tub with some string on it, and we don't have a bunch of jugs we're blowing in like the old country folks do. So,
well, Mitch, I will tell you, you're an inspiration.
Yeah.
So thank you for this round too, man. You just left you threw some breadcrumbs out there, and there was just no way we were going to let that go.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, tonight with I love talking to you, Mitch, because you make me laugh, and I love that about you. But I love the conversation that we had throughout tonight, and I
lots to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest, and I appreciate the both of you for sharing the things that you did.
Well, I appreciate y'all putting up with me. Not everybody can do that for longer than a couple minutes. So. Mike was talking about being remembered. Dude, I don't have that problem. I've been trying to get people to forget me ever since I met them, and I haven't quite figured that trick out. They just get, I remember that time. Please don't talk about that. Can we just leave the past? No, everybody needs to hear about it. Please, I'm begging you, don't bring that up. That's somebody I'd met 15, 20 years ago. So, I'm not so sure I'm leaving a positive impression, but they're definitely going to remember me.
Hey, somebody's got a story because of Mitch, that's for sure.
Mitch, maybe one of these days, right? One of these days we'll be on our deathbed and we can say, now I'm not ashamed.
Yep, I hope so.
That's it.
Love that.
Well, thank y'all for having me. Appreciate you both and the insights that you have. I've learned a lot from you.
Appreciate you, Mitch. It's been a ton of fun, and
you're off our hook for a little bit.
Man. Yeah, you got a couple weeks under your belt now.
All right. Well, when y'all ready for that live Gopher Hill pre-show, let me know, and I'll get the boys together and we'll whip up something good.
Right,
might even put a banjo in there and a turtle.
I love it. All right, Mitch. Thanks a ton.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, have a good night, man.
You too.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.